You the scapegoat of your family? I definitely was. Originally, I named my books Sacrifice of the Serial Killer, The Scapegoat Chronicles, and Sacrifice of the Serial Killer, Quest of the Scapegoat. So I definitely viewed myself as the scapegoat in my family. And and in my journey, that's where I started. Uh, it took me a year to write those books, and so I started looking at myself as the scapegoat, and that was helpful to me. Then later, I changed the titles to Blood Sacrifice and Serial Killer's Son, and they knocked off all my reviews, and then they started treating me as a very suspicious author and put me on all kinds of flagging lists. So don't change the title of your book after you publish it. So the scapegoat is the black sheep of the family. He's the oddball, he or she is the oddball, the one that all of the problems in the family are blamed upon. Now, the scapegoat comes from the Bible. And once a year, the Jewish priest would take two goats, and by casting a lot, they choose one of the goats, and then all of the sins of Israel, all the chosen people, are placed on the head of the scapegoat. Then the scapegoat is cast out of the tribe and released to wander in the wilderness, cut off from the tribe and the people. That's exactly what is done to the scapegoat. The parents of in a family will often unite all other family members against the scapegoat child, to bully this child, to blame this child, to accuse this child, to ostracize this child. They will shun the child. Okay, among the Amish, there is an official thing called shunning, where when a member of the community makes a bad decision or something they don't like, they're sleeping around, they're drinking alcohol, they've been arrested, something like that, that the community will shun them and cast them out of the community. They won't be able to fellowship with the other members of the community. They won't be able to have work. And that's basically what happens to the scapegoat. My father, he literally told me many times, more times than I can count, that I was not his son and that he was ashamed of me. And in recent years, I broke contact with my family 20 years ago. And in recent years, during this 20 years, in rejecting my role as scapegoat, I have repeatedly told every single one of my family members, I told my mother, I said, "You're not my mother. Stop pretending to be my mother because you've never done anything good for me." I say to my brother, "You are not my brother." And I say to my sister, "You are not my sister." And there's different roles in the family. My sister is actually the golden child. My brother is the invisible child. And both of my parents were narcissists. My father was a grandiose narcissist and a psychopath. Okay, and my mother was a covert narcissist, always using guilt, always pretending to be ill. But these are roles that people play, and my role was the scapegoat. Basically, the scapegoat is fundamentally rejected as a person. I was treated as someone who was bad, who was evil, who was irredeemable. Okay, something was just really wrong with me. Okay, that's how they treated me. And all of the resources of the family may be denied them, okay, including food, clothing, medical care, love, concern, and any positive form of attention. And this can expand to the entire community. And that's my story. Not only were all these things denied me by my family, but the entire community and my school system and the police and everything, because my father was a policeman, uh, everyone denied me all of the basic necessities, which is incredibly powerful. So, what are some of the things that were denied me growing up? Well, clothing. Okay. Growing up, I never had adequate clothing, and they really made the most of this. They really tortured me with clothing. Basically, I grew up in Maryland in a suburb of D.C., the District of Columbia, Washington. And the winters, they can get quite cold. You know, December, January, February, and March, there's going to be snows. Okay. And sometimes even into April, but usually not April. Uh, so you have to have like a proper winter coat. You have to have proper shoes. You have to have proper pants. I never had any of these things until after the age of 25. And by the time I'm 25, I'm living on my own, and I'm not, depending on my family anymore for any of these things. So what happened was I was doing an angel tree. Chuck Colson Prison Fellowship, my church was doing angel tree. And so we're buying some prisoner's kid a winter coat. So we're given a picture of this kid, and he's, I don't know, 9, 10 years old. And so one of the things, it was my job as part of this group of people who were buying stuff to buy this kid a winter coat. Well, this winter coat that we bought this prisoner's kid was so much better than any winter coat I'd ever had for myself. I was so jealous that I immediately went out and bought myself my first really good winter coat. Okay, I was 25 years old, never had a winter coat. I never had gloves. I never had long johns. I never had proper boots, anything. Why was clothing such a big deal? Well, if you're going to kill somebody, if you're your victim, you want to keep your victim naked. Okay, and basically, I was mostly kept naked with improper clothing because I was always trying to run away. And if I ran away during any time except for the absolute summer, and they always kept a dog outside to chase me down and bite me during the summer, I would just freeze to death and die from exposure. So they always denied me essential clothing my entire life, and that's how you keep somebody trapped. The other thing they really used was food. I was very intentionally starved until I was 23 years old. I was hungry every minute of my life until I was 23 years old. And my mother and my aunt and my grandmother, they would go. There was a time for, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, where every weekend we would go. They would take me with them to the Cheesecake Factory on Rockville Pike in Rockville, Maryland, in the White Flint Shopping Center. And they would sit there and they would gorge themselves on food and then cheesecake. And I had to just sit there starving and watch them eat. I wasn't allowed even a glass of water. And some of the waiters saw this and they offered me, they're like, are you hungry? I'm like, yes, I'm starving. And they offered me a free meal, anything I wanted to drink, everything for free. And so what happened? My mother called the gang and the waiters were arrested and murdered. On top of this, my father, because he was a cop, he got my sister a job in child protective services. Okay, so they wouldn't even take me out of the house. And the whole time I'm like, please, I'm starving, get me out of the house. It's a very serious thing to starve a child. And they did it. It was on camera in front of a whole bunch of people. And lots of the patrons called. So what happened is, because so many people called in that I was a child being starved, even though they murdered the two waiters, one waiter and one waitress who first they had them arrested for sexually assaulting me, which is what they did to everybody, and then they murdered them. But other patrons called in because it was a public place and it was like a Saturday or a Sunday. So I was given 3 meals a day at school. Breakfast, lunch, and a meal at the end of school day. I never got to eat even one of those meals. Every single time, one of the cops from the gang, usually the female cop or Gigi Treson, who became a DEA agent, they were always there with a gun to stop me from eating a meal. I never took a single bite. And finally, one of the lunch ladies, she was really upset and she just started, I can't believe you're starving this child. What's wrong with you? They arrested her for felony sexual assault on me and they probably murdered her. And then no one would give me that food. Anytime I would go up to get the food, all the lunch ladies would start spitting in the food and throw it on the floor and hit me with it. And I never ate another. I never got a single bite of those meals. And it was ordained by law that I should get 3 meals a day because I was being starved. And then they made more out of that. So with medicine, I was denied all medical care continuously my entire life. And even when I got cancer when I was older, the gang, they went to all my doctors. They followed me to every I got cancer. I had 3 surgeries. I thought I was going to die. I was under so much stress. And they were on top of that. They were trying to prevent me from getting any medical care, telling everything bad about me. So anyway, When I was 12, I think I was about 12, 11, 10, 11, 12. I went to do a sleep out with the neighbor boys. And we went fishing through some junk on the side of the road because you have to run around in the middle of the night if you're going to sleep out. And one of the idiot kids that I was with, he got this iron and they plugged it in and he ended up burning my leg really, really, really bad. Okay, like it was a practical joke or something. It was not a practical joke. So my leg got really bad. It became septic. It cracked and there was yellow pus coming out of it, and then there was that purple line. Okay, that is blood poisoning because it went on for days, and my father's like, "Don't take him to the doctor." I was just denied all medical care. So finally, my mother took me to the pediatrician in Rockville, Maryland. And he took one look at my leg, called 911, and called Child Protective Services. Okay, he's like, the child has blood poisoning. Why didn't you bring him here earlier? Well, so he called Child Protective Services. My mother called the gang and the cop gang, and they all rushed over, and he was arrested for felony sexual assault on me, and then within a few days he was murdered. And they staged it like a suicide. But I never got any medicine. Okay, any medical care. And I was hustled out of there. The ambulance came, I was hustled out of there, and I didn't even get any medical care. Okay. And he was expecting that my leg would be cut off. I actually don't know how I lived because I'm pretty sure I had blood poisoning, but you're going to have to say that I didn't because it would have killed me. So I don't know how that works. And I was too young to even understand what was going on. With regard to education, even education was denied me. I had a record breaking SAT score, okay, which would have gotten me into any school for full free ride. The other guy, the valedictorian, he's the only guy who had a higher SAT score than me. He went to Harvard, full free ride. Okay, that's how high my SAT score was. And then when I took the ASVAB in 1982, I had the second highest score in the country. Okay, and I went to induct into the military because I couldn't get away from my family. I just wanted to get away from my family, and they immediately wanted to put me in West Point. And the cop gang, they swarmed, and they 16 hours they raped me, beat me, and prevented me from going into the military. And they did this many times because I tried other times to go into the military. So basically, the scapegoat, they may deny you everything. Everything, everything, everything. And there's so much pressure on the scapegoat to become a drug addict, a criminal, a homeless person, because literally there were no other options for me. I was just a slave. I was completely trapped. I couldn't get away from them. I had such a bright future. If they would just take their filthy, malignant hands off of me, everything would be just fine. But they would never take their filthy, malignant hands off me because I was the dumping ground for everything evil in their life. So, and if I could have escaped from them, I absolutely would have been homeless. I absolutely would have been homeless. And then I would have found my way into the military, and I would have had a very good career. And so basically what all this shaming and dumping does to a person is very obviously called toxic shame. And the scapegoat can end up with chronic feelings of worthlessness, low self-esteem, and hopelessness. Okay? And I've been infected by this. Hopelessness, why? Because no matter what I do, the gang, the terrible people, the evil people are going to come for me and ruin it. Okay? For instance, like the military, I had the second highest ASVAB in the nation in 1982. I would have been a general. Okay? But they ruined it for me. It's just hopeless. Okay? I had a job with Shem Steinberg because I made a movie, and they ruined it for me. They left a first class airline ticket at the airport for me, and all I had to do was get to the airport, and they were on me every day. I quit my job, and they would kidnap me and take me back to the job that I quit. In fact, several times this happened so many times. Even the job that I retired out of, I was trying to get into the FBI, and I had an offer, and I quit my job like 3 times, and they're like, "No, you can't quit," and you become hopeless. You're like, I can't get away from these people. I just can't get away from these people. And you develop what's called toxic shame. And, and because you're just fundamentally a bad person, the evil people are going to come for you and they're going to ruin everything. No matter how good you do, they're just going to ruin everything for you. And people will just abuse you. So, some famous examples of some very badly abused children is obviously the Turpin children. Okay, I think there were 11 of them or 13 of them. At least two of them died and were they had no social security numbers. They were not registered anywhere. They were like buried in the backyard or something. But they would keep these children. They were chained upstairs. They were starved. They would buy the kids toys and never let them play with them. They would eat lavish meals in front of the starving children and force them to watch. They were sadists. My mother's a sadist, and my father is a psychopath and a sadist. Okay, but it's not normal that they would abuse all the children. Typically, in a family like this, one child is singled out to be the scapegoat. Okay, like I said, my sister, she was the golden child. She could do nothing wrong. My brother, he was the invisible child. No matter what he did, nobody noticed. And so he became a drug addict and a drug dealer and was growing pot in the basement. And everybody's like, I don't see anything. That's how they treated him. But me, I was the scapegoat. And I was the dumping ground for everything wrong in the family. So it's typically just one child. Okay, so my sister, she was the golden child, and they would just crow about my sister. She's so beautiful. She had blonde hair. She was a very beautiful girl. She ended up with 2 master's degrees and a doctorate, all stolen money, all my money. I don't even think my sister is really very intelligent. I've actually never heard her say anything intelligent, but she has 2 master's degrees and a doctorate. My brother, the invisible child, he got into drugs. He was high every day. He was, having sex with his girlfriend on his bed every afternoon. He couldn't graduate high school because he was so high all the time. He became the biggest drug dealer in our town. And then, like I said, he was growing. He started a grow operation in our basement. Like nobody noticed. Okay. Like nobody noticed. And they blamed it all on me. And everything that my brother did, what are these pot plants? What are these lights and what are these pot plants in the basement? What are you doing? I'm not doing anything. Everybody knows it's my brother and not me. So my father was a grandiose narcissist and a psychopath. A psychopath wants to get you alone. And when he gets you alone, oh boy, don't be alone with a psychopath because they're going to kill you. My mother was a covert narcissist and a sadist, and she described herself as a sadist. She said, Joseph, I'm a sadist. It's not my fault. Okay, she was always sick. She was always tired. She was always needy. Now, I had an ex-wife, and she was a covert narcissist. And as a covert narcissist, she had everything wrong with her. You name it, it was wrong with her, according to her. She had TMJ, which is the jaw thing. I had to have surgery for my jaw. She had bipolar. She said she was bipolar. She had anorexia. She had bulimia. She had migraines. She was a drug addict. She was a porn addict. You name it. It was wrong with her. Something was always wrong. No matter what's going on, she could pull out one of these things and make it all about her. Okay, that's how my mother was. It's kind of, I guess I wasn't very healed that I would pick a woman who was a covert narcissist like my mother. And my mother, a covert narcissist will always pull out a malady or an illness. Okay, and a grandiose narcissist, all the narcissists are wearing a mask. Okay, a narcissist is essentially a parasite, and they feed on the attention and approval of others. It's just like a drug addict. A drug addict needs drugs to feel good. A narcissist needs approval from others, and they're feeding on this approval. Now, a malignant narcissist will feed on the pain of others. So they will cause you pain. They will choose a scapegoat and they will cause this child constant pain. They're denying them food. They're denying them reasonable clothing. They're denying them an education. And they see the constant pain of the child and they're feeding on it like a parasite. Okay. And any narcissist is constantly manipulating circumstances so they can be fed on, what they're creating. And this creates an incredibly toxic environment. Now, in my home, everything was appearance. Okay. And I absolutely hated that. My father, he was, a grandiose narcissist. So he's the best guy in the world. He's an absolute party animal. If you want a party, invite my father because he's bringing the vodka and he's, he's bringing the party and he's going to drink you under the table. He loves all the women. He's going to flirt with all the women. He's going to kiss all the women because we're Polish. Oh no, we kissed the women 3 times. Oh my God, stop it. You know, you know, so everybody loves my father, but it's a weird kind of thing. Like my father demands that you love him. Okay, for instance, my ex-wife, her father was a grandiose narcissist. Okay, and they invited me to see him in a play, and he was in like the local theater, and he would always be like in the lead role or the second lead role. And I was going to go work for Shem Steinberg. I did acting in college, and I wrote plays and I wrote movies, and I know what acting is, and I cast actors. Okay, and I saw his acting, and I was really unimpressed. Okay, and the reason I was unimpressed is because he was just way too aware of the audience, and that's bad acting. Okay, if you're always paying attention to the audience and not what you're supposed to be doing, that's bad acting. And if you look at an actor and you look at them and you say, "Oh, their mind's empty," that's bad acting. They should always be thinking. They should always be thinking. They should always be in character. That's breaking character. So he I saw his play and I'm like, oh yeah, it was very nice. Yes, great, great. And I was really unimpressed. So he could tell I was unimpressed, and he's a narcissist. And he needs me to feed him. He needs me to feed him. Give me approval. Give me adulation. Tell me I'm an amazing actor and I'm so incredibly handsome. So the next time I saw him, because he could tell that I wasn't that impressed and I was trying to be polite, okay, but I know what real acting is. And so the next time, he made up this entire room in his house, and it was full of all these awards and pictures of himself everywhere, and this play and that play and that play. And he brought me up there and he showed me, and he's like, oh, look at this. And oh, look. And he was demanding worship from me. And it was, oh my God, it was so creepy. I walked out of that room and I said to her, I'm not marrying you. There's something wrong with your father. I don't know what it is, but it's not me. I'm not marrying you. And that's what a grandiose narcissist will do. He demanded that I fall at his feet and start worshiping him. And he was nobody. He was nothing. He had to feel like he was the most amazing person ever. And she was like that. She was a covert narcissist. Oh, I'm injured. Oh, I have TMJ. Oh, my family this, and oh, always suffering. But in reality, everything was a competition, and she thought she was just the most amazing person who ever lived. And that's what a narcissist is like. They literally believe they're the most amazing person that ever lived. And if you don't tell them you're the most amazing person who ever lived, they will literally kill you. And because I was polite. I tried to be polite to her father, but because he could tell I was not worshiping him. Every time I saw him, he immediately got a gun and tried to shoot me. That's how upset he was that I didn't worship him. And literally every time I saw him, he brought his gun and tried to shoot me. That's how upset he was that I didn't think he was the most amazing person who ever lived. So essentially, to wrap this up, because I was a scapegoat, I basically looked like a Holocaust victim most of my life until I broke. Not completely. I was getting further and further and further away from my family. And then 20 years ago, I broke contact with my family. And now I work out at the gym. I'm a little bit buff right now. And so until I broke contact with my family, I just literally looked like a Holocaust victim, really skinny, starving, because they just dumped all their crap on me. And they were trying to force me into a hole to be dead, a drug addict, a homeless person, or a criminal. And those were my only choices in life. So if you're the scapegoat, you may be suffering from toxic shame, and you need to reject what your family members are feeding you because it's killing you. That's it for today. Please like, share, subscribe, and something else. Anyway, that's it. Bless you.